Tyler Perry's Duplicity isn't just a drama. It's a shocking look at power, corruption, and an officer-involved shooting that is completely pointless, except to gaslight the audience.
This film doesn't hold back in its critique of the system, exposing issues of race and class in the pursuit of justice, and also the false claim that the system can be so easily manipulated by those lowest on the totem pole of power.
But does Duplicity deliver a powerful must-watch story, or is it just another over-the-top Tyler Perry thriller with a bunch of plot holes?
Stick around for this first impressions review of Tyler Perry's Duplicity to find out if it's worth your time.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber. This is going to be both a non-spoiler and spoiler review. You guys know how we do the reviews. The first part is a spoiler review, and we will let you know when we are going to start spoiling the movie.
But it's not much to spoil.
So this movie is brand new. It was just released on Amazon Prime in March of 2025. So those of you with Amazon Prime, you can stream it over there if you haven't seen it yet. And I think you told me that it was in the top 10, wasn't it, over there on Amazon Prime at the time we looked at it?
No, I think I was talking about something else on Netflix.
Oh, whoops.
But it probably was, right? When they put out new stuff, they push it. And like those, rankings don't really mean much. It just means what they're pushing at the time.
So we need to just get a little bit of background here. Tyler Perry, we wanted to know, why did he make this movie? So before we start, we just need to say, Tyler Perry said on this interview with Good Morning America that the reason he made this movie is, he says, it's a movie that I wrote because I was just tired of people kind of taking advantage of movements and using them for their own gain. So I wanted to do this thriller that's based around people doing some stuff that's pretty nefarious around movements that are happening in the country.
Bro.
So,
and once you find out what it is, then it's like, bruh, no.
It was, to me, problematic out of the gates. I didn't know this. I didn't see this interview before I watched the film. So I went into the film watching it like everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be based on what you see in the trailer.
Yeah, and the trailer is just like, oh, look, there's this officer-involved shooting, and there is more that you don't know, right? And it's like, after the 688, right? Yes. So it's like, oh, he's trying to get into his bag and start telling these stories that should be told.
Yes.
And then you watch the movie and it's just kind of like same old thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Fall from Grace, Acrimony, basically those movies.
So he also says that when he writes, this was in the same interview, and I will link the interview so that you guys can hear him say it out of his own mouth in case you don't believe what we're quoting him as saying. But in the interview, he also says that when he writes, he doesn't know how the story is going to end. The characters just come to him and they write the story. He's walking around his house and the characters are talking to him. And I've heard this before from some people.
Yeah. So maybe he intended it for it to be powerful or whatever, but it just went off the rails.
It could be because, but that seems to be his writing process. And hey, look, it's brought him a lot of money. So I guess we could say mission accomplished. So anyway, let us also talk about, one of Tyler Perry's favorite things is to teach us new words. He did this with acrimony. We have a whole video about how Tyler Perry taught us the meaning of acrimony. It's on this channel from a long time ago. This word duplicity, right? What is the definition of the word duplicity? So we should talk about that, right?
Yeah, it's like contradictory doubleness of thought, speech, or action, especially the belying of one's true intentions by deceptive words or actions. And that's from Merriam-Webster.
Right. And I'll go ahead and also add that duplicitous, because that's another form of the word that you'll hear people using. So duplicitous is used to describe someone who intentionally misleads people, especially by saying different things to different people or acting in different ways at different times. The word can also describe the actions of such a person. A close synonym is deceitful. Okay, so the long and short of it is like being deceitful if you don't want to listen to all of the rest of the words in the definition. And that definition was from dictionary.com. So I think we already get a clue as to where this movie is going.
Yeah.
We have people who are being purposely deceitful, right? Misleading purposely.
And he led with kind of like what Tyler Perry did with this movie, right? He led with the officer involved shooting stuff to be deceitful. To make you think that's what it's about, and that's not what it's about. Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? A one-time contribution of just $50 or more to Axiom Amnesia gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose.
It's easy. Step 1, send $50 via our website, axiom.app, where you can pay via card, Apple Pay, or you can pay directly via Cash App at $Axiom Amnesia. See the links below. Step 2, tell us your movie, email, the name you want to appear on screen, and what kind of deep dive you want. General, a specific character, a particular aspect of the film, etc. Step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors. Subject to availability and terms apply. The cast, let's talk about it. We have Kat Graham, who's playing Marley. And she's this attorney, and she also has her best friend Fela in the movie. We have Tyler Lepley, who plays Tony, and that's Marley's boyfriend, Kat Graham's character's boyfriend.
Kat Graham. Yeah. I know her from Honey, too.
And he's also an ex-cop. And then we have Megan Tandy, who plays Fela, who is the wife of the guy who gets killed. She's also a news anchor. And then we have Ronrico Lee, who plays Kevin. He's this black cop that's involved in the shooting. And he's also Tony's friend. Tony is Marley's boyfriend. And you'll be able to put these people together as we talk about the story. But also Ronrico Lee is like the silent hero of so many of these films throughout the years, because he is a vet. He has been in so much stuff. His face ought to be very familiar to you. You know,
hero in terms of production, not in the storyline, right?
Yeah. And then we have Jimmy Stanton, who plays Caleb, who was the white cop who actually was the one who did the shooting in the film. And so when you watch this movie, the themes that are involved, like if you watch the trailer, it shows this officer involved shooting that leaves a man dead, and the friends and family of the man, they're out for justice in the all too familiar ways that we've seen too many times before when bad things happen to unarmed black men.
Yeah.
So let us get to our ratings, and then we'll discuss a little bit more. So the first thing I think that we should talk about is the plot. In the area of plot. So in the area of plot, I think I'm going to give this movie a 3.
Okay. All right.
You know, I'm giving it a 3 in the area of plot. If you watch it, you'll see why. And the main reason is because I feel that the misdirection was wrong-headed. And we'll get more in our spoiler review about that. But that's what I'm giving the plot.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's a 2. Like I say, it starts off like it's about something, and then just for the sake of twist, it's a twist that has really nothing to do with the other. And then the way that it's all revealed, and you know how you use the characters to make the twist, it's just not that good.
I feel like it's a bait and switch, right? I feel like I was baited and switched into this, this film. So I'll also say that, what's another thing? What should we talk about next?
We could talk about whether or not it was entertaining.
All right. So the entertainment value, here's what I'll say about the entertainment value. I do think the entertainment value could be a 9. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you're not taking into consideration what it was supposed to be, and you know what Tyler Perry's movies are all about, and so you clicked on it, you know it's Tyler Perry. So if you like his films, you're going to like this, and it'll be entertaining to you. So I feel like a 9 is a.
But was it entertaining to you? Other people might like the plot too. But
it was entertaining.
Your rating is based on you.
It was entertaining to me when I let go of my expectation, in the sense that, hey, if I'm just like, this is a time, I don't want to say a time waster, but essentially that, this is something, let me see how it goes. Oh, that's crazy, and then it's just entertaining. And, you pass the time that way. And it's like the guilty pleasure type of entertainment to me. So I'm going to give it a 9 for the entertainment factor.
I'm going to give it like a 4.
I knew you would do that.
Why? Why did you think I would do that?
Because I felt like you You just did not like
it's
much
not
of anything.
Entertaining because they, you know, when you try to do basically a murder mystery, you try to do a mystery, and you know how you have somebody investigating a thing, and we talked about before, trying to investigate, terrible investigators, you know, and even if the investigator's terrible, then the story about a terrible investigator should be good, right? And I'm just not here I'm just like, all right, now what's next? Tell me what's next.
Yeah.
Let's get to the end and see what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So I wasn't entertained by it. And then the big twist, and you know how you have the big battle at the end of these movies, right? That wasn't good at all either. And it was very lazily done, and I wasn't entertained by that.
I feel like your entertainment score is exactly what I would expect. So let's talk about editing next. So if I'm going to give a score for editing, I would say that the editing is probably like, you know, an 8.
What?
You know, what was wrong with it? Like
Okay. So one thing is, all right, the guy is shot because he's walking between houses and some other stuff going on, right? I'm disoriented. You didn't edit it correctly for me to be able to know where am I looking? Where is this house in relation to the other house, right? And then when you're showing the other scenes of, oh, look at this footage from the past. Where is this in relation to all the other stuff? I just don't know, right? And then, and then a little green screen stuff, but mostly that. In the terms of the editing.
Okay, now you're gonna make me alter my editing score a little bit now, because you brought up some things that I wasn't taking
properly though. Do you think?
I think okay. So the area where where I agree with your point is during the most critical scene in the film, which is the shooting scene, and I feel like that scene was not, you know, there is a little bit of disorientation. But then again, I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to change my rating. I'm not going to change my rating because I think that was the point, was to also disorient you. They didn't want you to know what was happening. So no, I'm going to leave my rating at an 8. And that's what I would give it for editing. And Heit, what is your editing score?
I will give him, you know, maybe a 6.
Okay, and for the same reasons that we just discussed.
The same reasons, and the green screen part at the end, of course.
Green screens are always kind of janky.
Yeah.
You know, they really are. So let's talk about what you want to talk about next. Sound?
Sure.
All right, so let's look at sound. Sound, I'm going to give sound a 9 because I just feel like there was nothing wrong with it. It was done well enough that there wasn't anything that I felt was outstanding as far as outstandingly wrong or, you know, and so the sound was pretty good.
To me, a 9 is outstanding. So they don't get a 9. I don't even remember the music now that I think about it. So I don't know about that. I think it met standards.
Okay.
Right. So it's no real issues with that. So you could still get about 6. I didn't listen to it and was like, oh my God, look at these sound effects and all that stuff. So
I mean, maybe your score is fair. You know, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, maybe a 9 was too high. But I just feel like, you know, it was good. I guess you're right. It was an outstanding sound. So now, look, you're making me second guess my scores. No. It's hard because I have a problem with the film, and so because I have a problem with the film, I'm having a hard time fairly. Yes, and so I'm gonna bring that 9 down to a 7. For my sound because it wasn't outstanding. So I can't call it that, but I'll give it on the high end of normal, you know, the high end of, you know, meets standards, which I guess is about a 7. So that's what I'll say for that. The next thing that we probably should talk about is what? Cinematography?
Sure.
All right. So you can go first on the cinematography.
So, it's not too bad, right? There's nothing outstanding. I don't look at it like, whoa, this is brilliant. This is that. Matter of fact, I did have some issue with, okay, you know, we got officer involved shooting. What does he have in his hand? Right. So things like that. And why'd you show me this thing a second time? You know what I'm saying? When, you know, trying to be super obvious. But I think that's like a standard sort of a thing. It didn't look like a TV movie. Right. So it looked like a professional done it and all of that. A 6. So,
okay.
Because part of the cinematography is how you film the green screen as well. So, yeah.
For cinematography, I'm going to go with a a 6. And I will agree that the green screen did need some help, and this seems to be a problem. I mean, it doesn't look completely terrible. Like, it doesn't look like a green screen that you saw back in the 80s or in the 50s, early back in the day. It doesn't look like a completely fake backdrop, but it's just, I think he uses green screen when he should just go ahead and film it.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like, oh, it's nighttime. What does this nighttime look like? It's a key light that's very obvious on somebody's head, and it don't look like the moon, and it's supposed to be like a kind of deserted, dark area and stuff like that. But
yes. Yeah. And so for the last thing that we should rate, let us talk about acting.
Why did you laugh?
Because acting is like,
not Kat Graham's thing.
All right. So for acting, I'm giving the acting a 5. And the reason I'm going to give it a 5 is because I feel that some of the scenes, and I don't know who to blame for this, because this could be an issue with the director. This could be an issue with the actor, because maybe the actor wanted to play it a different way, but maybe the director wanted it, so Tyler Perry might have wanted it a certain way. What I will say is overall, the scenes that should just be hard hitting and like full of devastation because of what has happened, there was only one scene, and Kat Graham actually did that scene. And there was a scene where, she's seen the video of the event, and then after that she shook. I think Kat Graham did a great job on that scene, but the rest of it, like the acting was just okay. But Kat Graham did do a good job on that scene to me, where she was just devastated
and
Jimmy
crying Stratton?
And just shook. That's the one who played Caleb.
The white cop.
Yeah. So I think he did all right. I mean, there wasn't anything I would call outstanding. If there was going to be a person whose acting was outstanding at one point in the film, then I'd say Kat Graham in that scene after she sees the tape, or the video. So yeah, I'm giving the acting a 5.
His role was kind of like, hey, I have to Stratton, I'm talking about Caleb, the white cop. His role was that, I'm distraught, play a person who's distraught over what's going on, right? And he's supposed to be very empathetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe this happened. I didn't mean to do this, blah, 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 and blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And that's pretty much it. So I think he did all right. I guess that one scene with Kat Graham was okay. So I'm going to do like you. Probably.
Hold on.
I'm gonna do like you, and I'm gonna give it what did you give it, a 5? Maybe I'd give it a 6 because it wasn't terrible, right? But parts of the Kat Graham stuff, I'm like, no, we need another actress. But I think the other people were good enough to not totally just say the acting in the movie was bad. But she is the star and takes up a lot of
and
the camera time.
So I don't feel that her acting was terrible. I just think that there were opportunities, and not so much her, but opportunities for like the devastated wife. Okay, we see her fall. I think maybe, and this is the part where I have to blame the director, there were parts to me that were not raw enough given what happened. But when you understand how the director feels about these events and the things that he's trying, his angle on this, then it makes sense as to why he doesn't want to, actually show the raw emotion of such a terrible event occurring.
Yeah.
So, so let's look at what did we actually rate this? Heit gave it.
I gave it
4.6.
4.6. Yeah.
Overall. So this is out of 10 stars, 4.6. And
Cheri gives it a 5.9.
So we both gave it about something within the average range, right? And, it's funny because we had this conversation about the word average and saying average in our discussion about the film Just Right. Yeah. And there was one commenter who was like, oh, but you calling Queen Latifah average is just, well, and then I gave a response to that. But the point being that average is a perfectly okay. It's in the okay range. It's not like, average is not bad. It's just all right, it meets the standards. It makes the cut.
Right? Yeah, average person has 2 arms, 2 legs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
just average, and it's nothing wrong with it. Like it's not like saying average is the same as saying that it's bad or it's wrong or it's ugly or it's whatever.
But I think that's what people think, because you have the whole thing of you're smart, you're beautiful, you got to be above average in everything, and that's
just not realistic.
Not that, then that means
you can say what
something
you want,
is wrong with it.
But that's not realistic. Yeah. So we wind up with an average ratings for this Tyler Perry film. There are much better Tyler Perry films, if you ask me. But yes.
Yeah. So like the production itself wasn't bad. Right. It's mostly just the story, and it's terrible.
Right. And so would you say that this is worth the watch?
So Tyler Perry is so influential, right? He makes a big impact because I think he has a deal with Netflix, Amazon, BT, and who knows who else, right? And theaters and whatever, putting stuff out. So I think it's just part of the culture that you have to watch his films, right? If you want to know about what's going on in culture, and I'm saying that in that what's being put out and what people are accessing, right? So when all of this is gone, as your boys say in Hustle and Flow, they're going to look at the stuff that we were making, and basically Tyler Perry's going to be at the top of that. And so you need to see it from that standpoint of this is what's out there about the issues of the day. And this was one of the biggest ones of the past 10 years, 10, 15 years. Officer involved shooting. So yeah, you should watch it.
I think that it is definitely worth the watch. I think that if you manage your expectations going in, then, you'll be all right. And then for the people who really love Tyler Perry, you won't be disappointed because, he's given Tyler Perry, it's given what he always gives. And there is this element of...
And if you're a Trumper, then you really love it too.
If there is this element of suspension of disbelief that's supposed to happen when you're watching films, when you're watching theater, right? And so if you suspend your disbelief, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make, if you're not looking heavily at the plot, but I can't help it because that's just like what I'm going to do when I watch something. I feel like it has to make sense to me, but
I don't always, because I think of Trap, right? The
movie Trap,
M. Night Shyamalan Trap. The way that it's filmed and stuff, it lets you know not to take everything serious in that way, right? Or like Lucky Number 11 and things like that.
But see, those cues have to come from the film itself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this is a movie that presents itself like this should be taken seriously, much in the way that a soap opera does, right? His films tend to be very soap opera-esque. And let me just say that, again, I do think it is worth the watch. But what happens for me is if 6888 had not come out, I would not be confused because I would have said this is Tyler Perry, right? But especially 6888, this true story, where he really tried to do, a historical account of what actually did happen. And I was like, Tyler Perry's taking a different path. And so that confused me with what to expect from him. And so if I hadn't seen that,
especially when you dropped that trailer,
right. And if I hadn't seen that, then I wouldn't be confused.
Well, if I hadn't seen the trailer, I wouldn't be confused because I thought it was going to be something.
That part
right?
too. So I feel
it's like, is there a conspiracy of some, of those in power, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And you mentioned soap opera, and one of my notes was just like long soap opera scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it is definitely worth the watch.
Recent changes here on this platform are making it harder for you to see our latest videos and get notifications. To make sure you don't miss out on anything, we're building our own community, both on our website, axiom.app, and on Patreon with free and paid options available.
Here's the deal. While you can still watch our videos on YouTube, much of our current catalog and many of our upcoming videos will become unlisted and only accessible to our Patreon, Axiom.app, and YouTube channel members. We'll be posting links to these unlisted videos directly on Patreon and Axiom.app, so you'll be the first to see them. if you're a member.
If you choose the free Patreon option, you will still get access to some exclusive content like watch parties where we watch movies together and give the commentary, and other special videos. But premium paid members will get full access to all of our exclusive content. No new account is needed to join our Patreon. Just log in with your existing social media account.
While some of you may find this announcement disappointing, don't worry. We have no plans to leave YouTube at this point, but you guys are our cousins and our tribe, and we refuse to let platform changes tear us apart. So help us stay connected. Join us on Patreon today at patreon.com/axiomamnesia. You can check the links down below or in the comments. And so let me let you guys know that if you haven't seen it yet and you do not want this film spoiled, it's time for you to hop off the call because we are about to begin our spoiler review. All right. So the first thing that we should just do is go ahead and give a summary of basically what happens in the film, and then we're going to get into some of the deeper discussions around it. But here is a summary. And as you know, we always break the film down into 3 different acts: Act 1, 2, and 3. In Act 1, we have the lay of the land. We have who are the players involved. And then in Act 2, we are presented with some issue and problem that has to be resolved. And then Act 3 is where we see the resolution of that problem, that issue that we are confronting. So, Act 1, it's the incident and the investigation. We're introduced to this married couple, Fela, who is a TV anchor, and her husband, Rodney. And their marriage seems troubled in the beginning. And we're also introduced to Fela's best friend, Marley, and her boyfriend, Tony. And these two were introduced to one another by Fela, and their relationship is relatively new. So we're also at the same time introduced to Kevin, who is this Black veteran police officer. And then we get to see Caleb, who goes out with Kevin on, I guess it's like he is the, what would you call, he's the vet cop that's with the rookie, supervising, that kind of thing.
I don't know
assessing
what he was,
him.
but yeah.
Rodney goes on a run, and on his run, and Rodney is the guy who winds up getting, killed. So Rodney goes on a run, and he stops at this house, and he goes to enter on the side of the house. And so you see him, and it's like, why are you running? And then you stopping at this house. What's going on? So meanwhile, this white neighbor receives a phone call that a Black man is in her yard. And the caller sounds like she's this youngish sounding Black woman. Like by youngish, I mean, she's not an old woman, and maybe not even a middle-aged woman. So the white neighbor calls the police, and then Kevin, the Black cop, and the rookie cop, Caleb, the white cop, they show up for this call. And so then when they show up, they encounter Rodney leaving the home, and he has his earbuds in, and he cannot hear them when they're telling him to stop. So once he sees them pointing weapons, he reaches into his pocket for his phone, presumably to turn his earbuds off, right? But Kevin calls out gun, and Caleb shoots Rodney twice and kills him, right? Meanwhile, Fela, remember we said she was a news anchor, and she's at the anchor desk, and she's at her job, and she's reading the teleprompter about whatever boring news of the day is happening. And then they're like, breaking news. And when they break in, they say, breaking news.
There has been another shooting of an unarmed Black man.
I know. And then they're like, and we've also have him identified, like, how unrealistic is
already.
that?
Then when she read the name, she stopped because she knew the name. So none of the producers or directors knew her
husband's name.
Her husband was.
To not put it in the teleprompter. Like, to me, this was totally unrealistic, but we're going to get to that, in the full on discussion of how ridiculous some of the stuff that happens in here is. So this is how Fela finds out about the shooting. And she goes on to the hospital where they give her the terrible news. And then, she finds out that her husband is gone. So Marley, who's Fela's best friend, is also a successful attorney. And so she's determined to seek justice for her friend. Both of these guys, both of them are her. Rodney was her friend, and so is Fela. And so she takes on the case, and she believes it's going to be this clear instance of police misconduct. So she collaborates with her boyfriend, Tony, who's a former cop, but he's a private investigator now. And she's trying to gather this evidence to investigate what really happened to Rodney. And so their investigation reveals inconsistencies in the official report, and maybe there's a potential cover-up that's there. So Marley seems open to a settlement, even though they haven't seen the charges or anything. So it's like we're watching her in the office with the DA, or whatever.
Before the body's in the ground.
Yeah, like the body ain't even in the ground. Y'all ain't even had the funeral yet, really. Or it's very close to that time. Close. Like they ain't released the video. Nothing has happened yet, but you're like, we get a settlement. You're like, talking settlement talk.
Yeah, and she was talking to her friend, right? And Marley told, her friend, Fela, basically, you will be fine financially, right? And then Fela is concerned about, our debt and stuff. And she's like, yeah, you're going to be all right, you know what I'm saying? Because you're going to get this settlement. Like, this was like probably the next day. They're talking about her debt. She's talking about her debt.
Marley even is like, I may, telling Tony, her boyfriend, well, we may have to loan her some money so she can get through because, they have a lot of debt. So at this point, we saw vibes between Rodney and Fela in the beginning, husband and wife. That stuff wasn't going well. They looked like they had attitudes with each other and so on. And so then as an audience, we're kind of made to think the misdirection. Maybe it was the financial issues. And what was he doing at that house? We was like, maybe he was over there, selling something out of there. Or maybe he was going to surprise her and say, I flipped this house, baby, all of that. But, this is what's happening in the film at this time. We're just a little confused, but that's how it's supposed to be with the thriller. You're just trying to guess. And this is the ride that Tyler Perry loves to take us on as an audience. And, I think it was pretty good misdirection in this way. And again, my objection to the film is more on a higher level, not all of these fine details necessarily. So Marley's investigation and tips from her news friends uncover that Rodney was cheating on Fela and that's what he was doing there that morning. He was going to this woman's house that he was having an affair with, right? The morning that he was jogging. And so she is mad. Marley is mad at Tony, her boyfriend, for not telling her about this because Tony was friends, with both Kevin, the police officer, because he's an ex-police officer himself, and they knew, and he's a private investigator, so they knew information, and Tony poo-poos it off. So the other thing we have to point out is that apparently Marley's had bad relationships in the past from a guy that she couldn't trust, and so she's always questioning whether she can really trust Tony, her new boyfriend.
Yeah, she's been with only about 7 months.
So yeah. So that was Act 1. So then we get to Act 2, which is unraveling the conspiracy. So as Marley and Tony delve deeper, they discover that Rodney's death is kind of intertwined with this complex conspiracy that involves corrupt officers and hidden agendas.
And they try to make it seem like, hey, there's more that you don't know, right? Do you really want to investigate this, with the whole cheating thing, right? And it's just kind of like, all right, so what are the police hiding? And why is it about some affair?
Right. So they eventually charge Caleb, the white cop, and then he's a fugitive on the run. They don't know where he is. They're looking for him. And then this is where stuff starts to jump the shark. Caleb and his wife kidnap Marley to try to convince her that Kevin is the dirty cop, right? And his wife, Caleb's wife, the white cop's wife, is black. So this is kind of supposed to indicate that Caleb could not possibly be racist. It's interesting because on our other channel, Axiom Amnesia, the main Axiom Amnesia channel, we talked about the movie
National Security.
Yes. And the question was whether the white cop, could have had a problem with race, even though he has a black wife.
Yeah.
And so this is very
ex.
Similar. Yeah. Or a black girlfriend, whatever. So it's very similar to this kind of scenario, right? So you have people close to you who are black. And so it begs the question of whether that means that you don't have a problem.
They were trying to beg the question. I just think that was supposed to indicate to us that he wasn't racist.
So then, so all of this is happening. And so stuff is being exposed. Marley learns that her friend Fela also may not be as innocent as she appears, because after she receives this settlement of millions of dollars and she cuts ties with Marley, she moves away, don't say nothing to Marley. And it all comes to a head when Marley is intercepted by Tony, her boyfriend, at Kevin's house. And she's like, what you doing here? He like, what you doing here? So
she was staking out the place, and then he popped up somehow.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I was investigating too, because he is a private investigator. And then what winds up happening is they go inside because Kevin pulls up. He got all this money. He got a real nice house, too nice of a house and everything to be to just be a cop. Like, it's like multi-million dollar luxury estate.
This supposed to be the whole boom, boom, boom part, right? So they outside basically like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he pull up in the, I don't know, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, something, right? And then it's just like in this big house, and they talked about who owned it and stuff, and here he is. And then it's like, okay, so now that's the reveal, and I don't know what happens after this, right? When you get to these points in these movies. All right, I know everything gets revealed. And then we still have, 30 minutes left. Maybe probably not, but we still got a bunch of time left.
But that's not all, because if you know how a Tyler Perry thriller goes, there's going to be reveal on reveal on reveal. The twist on twist on twist is what's going to happen. And that's basically what happens in here. So Marley is kidnapped for like the second time in 2 days because they lure her inside, and then it becomes evident that Kevin and Tony are working together. And then they reveal, hey, we are trying to get a settlement, because Tony's backdrop is he is an ex-cop and he has some type of problems that's really kind of undisclosed, but some problems with the police force. And Marley solved those problems and got him a settlement. Not that huge. I think he got a couple $100,000 or something, but not a really big, or I don't even remember how much it was, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't millions, right? But she got him a settlement and stuff like that. And so now we're led to believe that he and Kevin have teamed up so that they could get her to negotiate a settlement, and that's what's going on. But they still don't, so at this point we're still thinking, all right, maybe, so then the two of them kind of conspired to get rid of Rodney for this purpose. Okay. So then during this, it's the typical scene where they, reveal what's happening, and she goes to leave and the door is locked.
And he's like, straight, bitch.
I know, right? Like fall
the big
from
transformation happens, right?
Yes.
It's like, where you think you're going, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Foolishness.
So they drug and they kidnap her, and they take her out on this boat on a lake to get rid of her. So when Marley comes to, she sees that her friend Fela is on the boat too, and Fela is all hugged up with Kevin. Now,
she wasn't just on the boat. We don't see her on the boat, but she pop up from the ground like she was asleep on
underneath
the floor. Like, what?
In the bottom of the boat somewhere.
She was just hiding because eventually we're going to bring her to the boat, and we need you to pop up at some point.
Was you in the boat the whole time, girl? Where was you at? Was you sitting on the boat waiting? I know the mosquitoes was getting you out there. So she pops up on the boat. So she is in the boat now. So we like, oh, Fela was in on it too. Which, I mean, the not so subtle hints to this point already tell you, like, Fela to move when she got her settlement. So you kind of suspect that something is going on with her anyway. So of course Fela's on the boat. And then it just basically becomes obvious that Rodney's death was orchestrated by those closest to him, including Fela. And then Fela, gives her little soliloquy about how, Rodney was cheating on her and da-da-da-da-da.
And they did it because he was cheating?
And, well, so they all had reasons to want to get rid of Rodney. Because the other thing is that Kevin was dating the same girl that Rodney was cheating with at some point. And, so then there was an issue over that. So that was supposed to be Kevin's, supposed to be Kevin's motivation. She was also with Caleb and his wife when they kidnapped, because she was there to say, hey, Caleb turns dirty, and he is, he'll be a different person here. He's nice, and then, he got physical with me or whatever. So that was that whole
Not
thing.
Caleb, but Rodney.
I'm sorry, Kevin, yes, Kevin, the black cop, that, he had this dark side to him, and he seems nice, but then he turns, and, that was kind of what they were saying was the deal with them. So
if it sounds convoluted, it is.
It is convoluted.
That's how, extreme you have to get to stack twist on top of twist on top of twist. You have to intertwine everybody and everything.
Well, and so to the defense of the modern thriller, what I would say is back in the day, they could do simple twists, oh, it wasn't who you thought. But see, once the audience gets smarter over the years, like, then you can't just do the simple twist. Like, I think a great twist is like The Usual Suspects. The end of that film is a great twist because, Kaiser Schwarze, and we find out that this guy who's pretended to be spoiler alert, this guy who has pretended to be a person with a limp and whatever, that he actually doesn't have a limp, and he is the guy that is being interrogated that they've been looking for the whole time, and that he has sat up and told lies and faked all of these stories that he's told that are, flashbacks in the film. Everything he said is a lie, and then he eventually is let go. And when we figure this out, when he walks away from the police station limping, and then suddenly his limp just gets straight and he's just walking, like this is one of Kevin Spacey's best roles ever. Playing this. And so he is the guy that they were looking for. So anyway, I say that to say these simple twists, like the audience is too smart for that now. So you got to do this outrageous stuff, or you just go another angle, or maybe, I don't know how the modern thriller has changed to accommodate it. But it's like there's only so many ways you could do the twist. All right. But people know to be looking for who it could be from the beginning. And if you're giving any sort of hint, audiences are pretty good at figuring that out. These days, how often are you tricked?
Not that often, right?
Yeah, but doesn't happen
I don't
often.
know. I guess with the number of twists, I can't figure them all out, right? Because it's just sheer numbers. It's just who is connected to who and who is not, right? It's just the things that change.
Right.
Who all was involved, right? And who was involved with who and for what reasons.
And so we find out that actually Fela, the wife of the guy who got killed, is kicking it with Kevin, the black cop who was involved in the killing, right? And so at the end, we put it all together that the voice that we heard, it was Fela calling, right? Fela called the white neighbor to say that there was a black guy in your backyard. That was Fela, right? And so we're able
How
to put,
she knew?
Because she had surveillance on her husband. So she knew he was cheating. She knew this is where he was going on his runs. She knew that he was there.
Yeah, but too many things had to line up at the same time, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's what happened basically. And so then after all of everything is revealed, then they're on this boat, and when Marley comes to, Fela's there, and then we go to Act 3. Act 3 is the confrontation and the resolution, right? So Marley manages to escape from the chains because they throw Marley overboard with an anchor.
All about that.
And so she escapes from the chains, and then there's this climatic confrontation that happens on the boat where she faces Fela and her accomplices, and then basically she kills all three of them with a flare gun.
Yeah.
And then they, go overboard, and then she shoots the final flare in the air so somebody could come help her. And so the film concludes with Marley reflecting on the duplicity of those that she once trusted and the moral ambiguities that are encountered in her pursuit of justice. And that's how the film ends, Know someone who's obsessed with movies? Surprise them with the ultimate gift, a personalized 30-minute Axiom Amnesia deep dive on demand on their favorite film. For just $50, they'll get exclusive insights and see their name as executive producer. Get yours today at axiom.app.
So when Tyler Perry say that it's a movie that he wrote because he was tired of people kind of taking advantage of movements and using them for their own gain, there isn't one example where something like this happened, where a shooting like that was completely made up for somebody to get a settlement.
Right. He says this, and what is the impact of a statement like this? Like, is it okay to make people doubt the movements that are based in truth? And so
because
that everybody should be skeptical.
Thriller?
Yeah, so that everybody can be skeptical when time is of the essence in the beginning of this. Well, that Tyler Perry movie, they might have made that up. So, all of these people, it's in the vein of supporting ideas like, crisis actors when something happens, right? It's like saying that this is not real. This is a setup. Now, we went back because we were just trying to figure out, like, what is the deal? What is the deal with, like, why would he say this?
Yeah. I seen something around the whole George Floyd thing where he seemed to be like, okay, George Floyd stuff got a lot of momentum, but there are these other stories and that I've been involved in, right? And these other events that I've been involved with and cared about, and they all need to get the light, right? So I think it's just kind of like being jaded that maybe some people are getting settlements and getting some sort of resolutions and others aren't.
And I think it also could be a combination, because I imagine that Tyler Perry rubs elbows with people who might have been involved in, quote unquote, the movement that we saw, be big over the last 10, 15 years, right? So he's seen them, and there are people who did gain a lot personally from the situations. I'm not going to go all into it. Y'all, if you know, you know. There are people and organizations even where there's question marks now later, where people who we trusted up front. And so some of the vitriol for those type of people who are manipulating situations might have been muddled in these cases. And,
the movie isn't about any of those and how those things happen, right? When you say, I was just tired of people taking advantage of blah, 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 right? Then that's telling me that you had a motive in crafting a story of the such, which is basically to say these people aren't out for anything except money, right? It seems like something Ben Shapiro would make if he were to make a movie.
Yeah. And so here's what I also think, though. I ask myself, do I feel that he deliberately did this? And as far as deliberately would have the potential outcome of people doubting that these things are occurring, I think that was just an unintended consequence. I think he thought, hey, I need a movie anyway. This is going to be clever. And he was very proud of himself. If you look at the interview, he thought he ate.
Right.
And I just have a problem with the idea that it's okay to diminish all of these people. Like, think about all of the people who had problems. And we know that he cares about them because he's fighting for the people who are victims of stuff. So then why would you undercut that by wanting to tell a fictional?
We know. So the thing is too about whether or not, one of the big issues is that whether or not the cops are racist, right? Mm-hmm. So you got the white cop in here and he's showing up all the time. He's like stalking the lady. Like, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to do this. I'm just here to apologize, right? So he's that happens. And then, hey, we got some background on the artist, on the cop, which always happens, right? He was using the N-word, right? He got in a fight with a black soldier and hurt him and stuff, right? And then, none of that, there's an explanation for it, right? And how do we get the truth of the matter is that after a few people kidnap the main character, the cop sits there and the people with them, another white lady, right? And they explain everything, and that's the truth. Oh, with the soldier, it was this. He didn't say the N-word. I'm a black wife of a white cop, right?
Well, so here's the other thing, right? It's pointing to the fact that things are not always as they seem.
I don't think it's about always. When you say you have a problem with this thing and you presented it that way, you're saying this isn't what's happening. Right? Most of the time, if we just go back and we look at the officers, then we'll realize we're making these things up for money.
So things are not always as they seem, meaning that there are exceptions. We see this many times where the idea is that the stories we see are the exceptional stories. Hey, in this case, this happened. In that case, that happened. And I agree that what you just said is the consequence of presenting things in this way. But the other part is that, yes, we all know that there are people who are innocent, who are, are convicted, and for many different reasons, right? And it's very difficult to try to generalize every story. But in general, and this is why people make generalizations, in general, this is the case, right? The things like this happen, and this is the, but people always want to point to the exception and try to make it like, because there are exceptions, because there are outliers, that means that we should question every single thing that, in general, this isn't true 75% of the time or half the time.
And then for me to get tired of people using the thing, that means that's overwhelmingly happening, right?
Yeah.
So what even happened? There was no resolution for the cop who did the shooting at the end, right?
Right.
We still had body cam footage that got explained away, right? Because the white cop said that I'm supposed to not believe my eyes, gaslighting, right? Mm-hmm. So we see all of this happen. And just because they explained some stuff, I'm supposed to be like, oh yeah, that was justified? When I seen what you filmed, Tyler Perry, right? What Tyler Perry filmed and put that was edited into the film. And so he just, no mention of the white cop or nothing. He just leaves off, I'm good and everything, after he shot somebody who was unarmed. But he's somehow one of the heroes of the film. And it's supposed to be, this other cop, the black one who was bad, yelled gun, so it's justified.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't, it's the story he wanted to tell.
That's the story he wanted to tell. And see, and to get back to this, so here's the thing. I think that, again, to he who much is given, much is required, much is expected. And there is a type of responsibility that you have to your audiences. We know that we are in a time of the dumbing down, and I don't mean dumb like stupid dumb. I'm saying what the reduction of complex ideas and things to very simple context, right, for people. And we're at a time where stuff has been so dumbed down that the critical thinking is at an all-time low, and people take stuff they see in movies even as the fact, right? They don't say this is fiction, this is a fictional account. We look at think about all of the comments you guys see from other people who are acting like fictional characters, that whatever they saw here was a fact just because the character said it was a fact, when all of this is really fiction, right? And so there's a responsibility, because let me tell you, and you guys know that we have created a lot of fan theories, but just for as many as fan theories that actually made it out there, we have tons more theories that we could be coming up with that are connected to all kinds of things that happen, because that's just what we do. We're creative like that. But we can't put them out there because it would be irresponsible, because we know that people would take the theories as fact and run with it, and that there is a detrimental effect.
Yeah.
And I feel that this is what Tyler Perry is failing to see about his position and impact that he has on these things. Because for Tyler Perry, it's not just a movie.
I think he sees the impact, right? But that's why he say, I was tired of this happening, so I made this movie to deal with it. Right?
I mean, and I just, I want to believe that wasn't his intent. Right, and so, I can't say.
And we look at the other types of things he make, right? He don't make it about these super deep political social issues, right? But when you decide to make one about it, then what is your position on it? Tells me where you are.
So that was the problem, why we felt that the film was problematic. But there are other things that we can kind of talk about and laugh about. But there were problems with the plot. Unrealistic things happen. One of the first things is the idea of Fela reading this teleprompter when her husband's, about her husband's death.
And even before that, the anchor, there was another shooting of an unarmed black man. Like, that's not going to be on the local news. They don't say that.
Well,
and especially in the minutes after it happened.
Definitely wouldn't happen. And what's interesting to me is sometimes, because I do a lot of reading or listening to audiobooks, I call that reading at this point in my life, but consuming books, right? And in books, there is a certain thing that you have to understand, especially if you read book series, right? So the time in books is not like real time, or just like a good example you guys probably would know if you don't read a lot is soap operas. You know how in soap operas, somebody could be pregnant for 3 months on a soap opera and have a baby, 3 months in real time, or somebody could be pregnant for 2 years in a book, because time is kind of fluid in books in a way that it's not in film. And I think if you don't get that right, then, and not just time, but other things like, okay, I can understand why he needs a scene in this movie where the information gets out, and you could tell, because in that interview, he talks about this actually. And he's like, just imagine she's reading a teleprompter.
Oh,
and it's
her husband,
just
imagine.
She has to say it, like that. He wanted that scene, and there was really no other way to make that happen.
Yeah. And when it happened, I wasn't
realistic.
Like, oh my God, it's so terrible for her. I was like, why would this happen like this? Yes. I know I ain't saying that when things happen and companies and organizations operate flawlessly, but geez, there's a certain very minimum standard that usually happens, right?
Yeah.
And It may be different for someone who's, say, streaming on YouTube and they don't have all the team and all this, and they're just reading stuff on social media and somebody says the name of somebody they know
right
while they're reading it. It doesn't work like that when you're at a news organization of that sort.
Yes. So that was just unrealistic to me. But he just was like, I need this to hit. So who cares if it seems realistic? Yeah. I want this scene. It's kind of like in Divorced in the Black, where the scene where the casket and they like, take him out the casket, not the casket. Right. You know, like it's for shock value.
And when our news, when is the local news running too? Right. So now we need to know what time was this going on, and would the local news be airing at that time?
Yeah. So, and maybe we're too deep in the weeds with the details, but at a minimum, the idea that what was said would be said by the news anchor, another black man, you know, and that she is the one who's on screen in reading the teleprompter with her husband's name, and yet nobody catches that this is her husband is just, you know, I don't know. That seems like so far out there, but I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
The next thing is Kevin, the black cop, right? Who's part of this whole conspiracy.
Yeah.
All right. He was able to involve himself with the victim's family while he was on leave from the shooting. Like he was
actually involved in the shooting, and he was showing up at every place, right? He was like, so one of the things happened, somebody broke into the Fela's house, right? Mm-hmm. Basically. Fela is the spouse of the person who was killed.
No. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. He's the spouse of the person who was killed. Why would the officer who was involved, he wasn't on leave or anything. He's showing up. He's investigating. He's doing all these.
I think he was on leave because he says, I'm off. I could come over here. You know, so he's like on leave. He is on leave, but he's meddling with the family. Okay, what about the fact that...
And before that, he was all around. Like every step of the way, he's there. And I'm like, why is this guy here? And why are they letting him here, right? So, yeah, I'm sure that happens, right? Because we've seen some things like this. But come on now.
And why didn't he fear for his life? Because you all know how if something popped off as big as this supposedly got in here, that they were having press conferences and everybody was all interested in what was going on, everybody involved on the side of, you know, the police is like watching their backs and fearing for their lives, probably because, you know, the people, you never know if you're going to have vigilantes and stuff like that. So the people who committed this
have irrational
heinous act,
fear.
Well, yes, but the point is, would you really be rolling around like that? You know, because this is what happens. Like the person goes into hiding. Hell, we may not even have the name of the people involved.
So even the ones after the George Floyd, right? One of them, he was out in Walmart or something, and somebody noticed who he was.
Yeah.
Right. So we got evidence that they go on with their normal lives because they probably know, like, ain't nobody going to do nothing.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? And then after that, he was called out, put on social media. I think then he kind of, quote, went into hiding.
Right. So what I'll also say, and this isn't a problem with the plot, but it's actually maybe a positive thing that is, well, I shouldn't say positive. It's an interesting thing, an interesting dynamic with the thriller aspect of the film, which is that, you know, because we have this duplicity going on with these characters, we have people who are operating in different realms, right? We have the official cops and DA, right, who see this problem. They know the city is, you know, potentially going to burn, all these protests, and they have to figure out what is going to be the right thing to quell the unrest and to protect the cops that they want to protect. Let's keep it real. And so that's what they're trying to navigate at that time. And that's what their interests are. Then we have the dirty cops who have their profit motive. They want to get the settlement and everything like that. And so we have their truth and how they're operating out of that. And then we have Marley, right, who is the innocent party in all of this, who's the attorney or whatever. She is operating with her set of facts, truths, and her thing, which is, I want to get justice for my friend who had this terrible thing happen to him. And so I do think the dynamic of that is interesting. And, you know, we were talking about it after the fact, and I'm like, you know what? Tyler Perry is very good at presenting moral dilemmas, right? And shades of gray, areas where people have compromised loyalty and all of that stuff, right? I think he's very good at that. There have been many films. We've done a lot of his films on this channel. So it's not saying like this is a diss to him or anything like that. It's just pointing out the issues and the problems that we see. But I did like that dynamic, between these different truths, because the DA is like, well, we're going to charge him even though we don't agree, and then, and the other side probably would be Caleb and his family, right? Who are like, hey, I got caught up because somebody set me up,
and he was training, right? And another officer basically told him to shoot for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But but that was what the film you act like you were making. He acted like he was making. Mm-hmm. But that's not the film that we got, right? So then we had this other part, right? So like this attorney who is so great and high powered, right? That she is investigating the thing, and she is trying to get the settlement with the city. Mm-hmm. And one of the things was that this white officer was being trained. So the more senior officer, he took them to an area that they weren't used to. He's like, "Are you ready to go to Zone 7 or wherever?" Mm-hmm. Right? And then so later on in the film, Marley, who is the attorney, who I guess is supposed to be from this area, is like, during my investigation, I learned about zones.
Yeah.
So why were you in the wrong zone? Like, is little things like that. It's like, wait, so she's probably a terrible attorney.
You're experienced in this area, but you just now learning about zones.
Just an attorney being in the city would probably know, okay, there are zones. Regular people in the city know about zones, especially if you've been, she worked with your boy to get him a settlement before, who was a cop. Mm-hmm. You knew about zones already.
Right.
If you really did something like that. And cops, so they probably talk about it. Zone this, zone that. Like, what? It's just the most basics. I would think. I'm no attorney. Mm-hmm. But I know there are zones in different areas. Yeah, so.
I'm with you on that. But I would just say that some of this points to, I'm not going to call it bad writing, but writing that needs a consultant, right, in a particular area. Whether you're talking about a lawyer, whether you're talking about whatever, you need consultants or people to make sure that it's realistic. Yeah. Because as the writer, that you have to have this dialogue that advances the plot. But if the dialogue is not realistic, or people who would take it as not being realistic, then there's a problem. But then the other thought is that there are many people who are not going to question it. It's not going to get in the way of the bag. It's so funny because in the comments of the video that I'm going to link, that where he's with Good Morning America and getting his interview on, two things happened. One, you have people in the comments like, we don't care because it's Tyler Perry and we finna watch it anyway, regardless, because they took the interview there as kind of trying to take away from the movie that he's trying to promote right now, which is Duplicity, because the people who were interviewing him, George Stephanopoulos and a couple other people, they want to just only talk about Madea and an upcoming Madea movie that he has. They don't care about Duplicity.
They were like, officer involved shootings. Oh, you don't care about it? All right, Madea. And then they just kept going on and on. He was like, Duplicity. And they was like, all right, now do a Madea voice.
Yes. I mean,
They were like, come shuck and jive for us. And he took it in his stride because...
But he still was like, he's saying Duplicity, go and watch Duplicity in the voice of Madea. And it's kind of terrible, but he brought it on himself to a certain degree because he has built his brand.
Right.
And people know what his brand is. And
then the way that he described Duplicity and stuff, he's like, oh, it's just fun and whatever, right? So, okay, now I could just really get into it since this movie ain't nothing serious.
It's giving me permission. One of the biggest Black filmmakers has said that, it's plausible that somebody could have been making up and setting up stuff just for settlements.
Right. So, all right. So Fela, you're right, the wife of the guy who was killed in the film, she had a little spot after she popped up in the boat, was just like, what better way than this? Using political narratives, blah, blah, blah.
Bruh.
Actually saying it.
Stuff that nobody would ever say. But, I mean, he
bring
tends to
home,
be Captain
right?
Obvious. But, okay, so here's the other question I have for you.
Now, you mentioned plausible, and I thought of R. Kelly.
Oh, shut up. Plausible deniability.
The anchor at the end of the film is like, we have to say allegedly. They was like something allegedly. We have to say allegedly for legal reasons.
Bruh.
Like, but you got this from watching
directly
YouTube videos? Because... That's not how that works.
And to be clear, you're saying allegedly not just to say allegedly, because somebody will be like, well, you do have to say allegedly. One of y'all is going to pop up in the comments with that.
No, you don't.
Okay, you're saying allegedly to suggest that you're not saying it's a fact. So in other words, I've seen people, other people on this platform say, allegedly, I gotta say allegedly, but we know it's true.
But
then
when you
that's
say
not
that,
going to protect you.
Yeah, that's going to be like, oh, you're presenting it as fact, and you're just saying this to try to wiggle your way out, right?
Yeah, as a loophole.
And you don't have to say allegedly. You could say, the reports are that this person did this.
Yeah.
You can say he walked to the store according to an eyewitness, right? Or maybe even, I believe that this happened, but you know what I'm saying? You could say something and then say but. The reason I think of R. Kelly is because he had somebody who was supposed to be like his publicist. Mm-hmm. They were being interviewed and they asked him something and he was like, plausible deniability was a reason. I'm like, wait, what? You don't say plausible deniability.
Were you watching Independence Day? Because to me, that's a quotable from the movie Independence Day, where the guy says plausible deniability with regard to Area 51. Yeah, but like, bro, are you serious? Like, so you're essentially saying that the answer to this question is that so that we can always say we didn't know, basically.
Yeah.
We need to have a knowledge of
that. So
right? Plausible
there's no protection
deniability.
To just say, we have to say allegedly for legal reasons.
Words are important, and it's important to know how to use them.
And when you tell me that, you're saying that you don't believe it's only alleged. You believe that it's fact.
Yeah. Then that's you saying it's a fact to people. It don't matter if you throw in the word or sprinkle in a little allegedly. Doesn't matter. And this is probably why that would never happen on a news station, because like that's going to be journalism 101.
Basically, and it's baked into all of their writing and everything, right? Like one thing that happened after the internet blew up and things, right? They would have a long statement about like situations like this, right? Police kill man who was reaching for a gun and strangling a child.
Right.
Report.
Yeah.
Right? They're saying that, this is only a report, but they just throw that at the end, just like dangling out allegedly, right? Which you can dangle out allegedly as long as you don't say but if they say we only put report for legal reasons, then it's like, okay, now you're trying to say that those are facts.
Yeah. All right. But, so this film, that's what it is. We've kind of hashed it out, and let us know in the comments what you thought about it. But again, I mean, it's going to be entertaining from a Tyler Perry-esque perspective.
If you just forget about the social implications, then nice fun ride.
It's a little thriller. It's a little thriller. You can get busy with this little thriller.
Get busy, man. If you made it this far, type payout in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out our video that's on the screen right now. And also go to axiom.app. And that is where you can find all of our recent videos from all of our channels in one place that will link you back to YouTube so you can watch them here. And also look down below this video because we got merch, y'all.